And happy Wednesday, Seahawks fans, and to the world. How's it going, everybody?
It's so good.
I mean, it's probably hard not to have a smile on your face thinking about a great opener to the Seahawks where everything looked good, right?
Yeah, man. It feels like it's been a long time since it was just a good game all around for us. Something seems to be lacking here and lacking there recently, and that felt nice.
It did feel nice, and you know, we usually talk about things that we're worried about or in the moment after a game, like, oh, well, this is where I was a little concerned, or, you know, this could have gone the wrong way, but this happened to luck out for us and we just squeaked it by. That was a pretty dominant win, I think, for an opener, especially coming off last year where we were like, basically, we had a big lead against Atlanta, but the defense just like gave up yards and yards and yards and touchdowns after touchdowns where you thought maybe Atlanta was going to come back, but that didn't happen last year. And this year, I didn't think Indy had a chance going into the second half.
No, they didn't. They never really looked like it. Never got scary. Like Atlanta, it looked like we were going to just blow them out of the water, and then all of a sudden it was like, whoa. And then you thought that we could blow this. There was never on Sunday where I thought that we were going to blow it.
Yeah, I would say when they scored the touchdown to make it 14-10, that was the closest where I thought like, uh-oh, this might be a closer game than I anticipated. But overall, a pretty great game from every facet, from the coaching to the players, offense, defense, and special teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we blew them out. It's not like we crushed them, but we were just better at pretty much all aspects. So
yeah,
we were better at life than they were.
We were indeed.
We were Richard Sherman to their who is it? Skip Bayless.
Skip Bayless, yeah. Although, I mean, you want to revisit that? Anyway, but yeah, it was great to have a game where I didn't have to immediately have like my heart medicine prescription refilled immediately afterwards, right?
Right.
I mean, like there was no, like you're saying, like I didn't bite my nails to the quick. Although I'm not a nail biter, I didn't have sweaty palms once the game. Before the game, I was extremely nervous, but almost immediately you could kind of see like how I see how this is going to go. Like it's not going to be an absolute beatdown. We didn't blow them out 63-0, but like you guys said, it never really had like some serious doubt to it, right? You felt like, hey, they're a professional team. They're going to make their plays occasionally. Pascal had 2 touchdowns for them. It's pretty good. And, the running backs didn't have horrible games, but you just saw the qualitative difference of the teams, I thought. I was really happy with that because going in, I mean, I don't think that, I mean, everybody's talking about how great it feels, but I don't think people have understood, like, how, like, that's a legitimate team. They were in the playoffs last year. They have maybe they're just not warmed up yet, but they have a top 5 defense. And they didn't look top 5.
Yeah.
For that. It's funny. Go ahead.
They were an 11-5 team with a Phillip Rivers that was definitely aging and old, and I don't think Carson Wentz played a terrible game. Like, I think he was pressured and he was hit a lot, which impacted him, but he wasn't making errant throws like all over the field. The only times he was making really bad throws is because there's just a ton of pressure. Like the Seahawks had 10 hits against him. I saw some stat and it said that last year that offensive line, they didn't have a game where Phillip Rivers got hit more than 5 times. So it's not a case of just all of a sudden Carson Wentz, who is a more athletic individual than Phillip Rivers, just like doesn't know how to play football. I think the defense just really shined. Maybe it was like you said, lack of practice. They had some COVID shit that hit them like pretty hard with their offensive line and their quarterback. But those are situations that every team is dealing with. That was, to me, a preventable situation to run into. And if the Seahawks were the benefactor of that, then, I think that's the way that Seattle and Pete, happy birthday, Pete, they were able to take care of it. So I'll take it.
Yeah, I think that's really important to say because I think in the modern NFL, it's not necessarily just players against players. It's organizations versus organizations, and all of that matters. Like you said, like your off the field prep, your facilities. I mean, the game has evolved so much that it's all percentage differences of advantage. You know, everybody out there now can run fast. Everybody out there is really, really strong. I laugh when I see people say players today are soft and couldn't play in the 60s because they're so much bigger and faster, and the game is so much more efficient. So, yeah, now it's, you know, do you have the right protocols in place to get your people rested? You know, like, when's the last time you cared about a 10 a.m. start? You know, we talked a little bit about that last week. But our organization knows how to deal with that now. You know?
Yeah.
And they have the best protocols in place, apparently, for COVID still this year. Because we're not... Almost every team this year as well. Maybe not a player, but they've had some issues. But we don't have those issues.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, sorry, not to jinx anything, but I do want to bring up one thing though. So, like in the off season, a lot of everybody's like, "Oh, Russ threw his offensive line under the bus," and Dwayne Brown's mad, and some people were like, "Oh no, not at all." But apparently, they even had to have a conversation. Dwayne Brown was like, "Yeah, I sat down with Russ. We had a talk." They go, "Shit," but apparently that went well. And nobody's talked about it, but he still got sacked 3 times. That would be 51 on the year, like. So, how's Russ actually feeling? He looked really happy. He looked really enjoying the game for the first time in a while.
Yeah.
But that was still 3 sacks. Does that matter?
I mean,
does it matter? Does it not matter because we won, or do you think it still matters to Russ?
I personally think that those comments are said in the moment after a tough loss and lingering into this offseason, so I get why he would say that and why the offensive line would be rightfully upset. You know, depending on how much you read into it, and I think also your thoughts on Russell Wilson and how his personality has evolved will probably change the way you think about it.
But these 3 specifically this week, how?
But what I saw an offensive line that was gelling. I saw teammates that were celebrating across the field with everyone. They looked unified. So whatever happened in the offseason, whatever led to these issues, yeah, winning does solve everything, but they looked legitimately happy for one another. Like, the linemen were excited for each other, the defensive linemen, like, every time Tyler Lockett scored, you saw DK Metcalf like flashing his arms up, down, signaling touchdown. Like, they looked excited for each other.
They do, and that's great. I just wonder that if, like, when Russ is in bed that night and Ciara's deep asleep and Russ is lost in his own thoughts, if he's actually going, "My elbow hurts. Oh, that's right. I took another 3 sacks today." Like, away from the team when it's in it, because like when he, you know, we know he's always a team player. Last year he was super team. He's never not a team player.
Yeah.
But it's the other side of Russ. There's business Russ. I think he has delusions of being president or someday or something. Like when he's lost in his own thoughts, do those sacks count? Is he going like 3 more, 51 in the air?
He's a professional quarterback. The 9 years in the league, like. Those guys get sacked. Like, there's no way around it.
But he gets sacked at a high rate, and some of it's his fault. But he talked about it, and I'm just wondering if they count in his mind. If he's like, I wonder if there's some sort of magic tally. I mean, even is it in the offensive line's head? I wonder sometimes.
Okay, look. Here's what I think. I think that if Russ is at home and going, "Stupid offensive line, always getting me sacked," then he's an asshole. Like then the Russ that we see now, we all know Russ comes across as fake sometimes, but I think he's a fairly genuinely nice, friendly, you know, happy type of person. I think that's his real attitude. I don't think he's at home doing that kind of stuff. I don't think this is the kind of stuff that's under the surface that has the potential of turning things sour. I think a lot of the stuff's overblown in the media. These guys have to talk to each other every day. They see each other every day. They rely on each other professionally. You know what I mean? Like, these guys aren't mad at each other and not speak. Like, I think that's...
Yeah, I mean, I might not be saying this right. I don't think he's necessarily mad, but I'm just wondering, like, if there's some sort of secret tally in his head, and then when he gets to the end of the season, he's just going to be like, well, we did pretty well, but that was another 51 hits, and I know if I played in City X, they'd protect me better because look what Kansas City did with their offseason. All they did was invest in the offensive line. And I'm just I'm not trying to stir up trouble. I'm just wondering if this is sort of like a, even though we are winning and even though everybody looked super happy and that was maybe the most satisfying win we've had since a while. I just wonder if there's still like under the surface there's just like a little bit of that stuff still gonna count, and I don't know. I don't have an answer.
I think it's possible to kind of wrap up the point. So to move on real quick is that I think that is possible, and I think that is the fear. That is what is going to be the cloud hanging over this season. The way that last year ended, the way that Russell Wilson basically asked for a trade or wanted to look at exploring a trade, that made it so this is going to be a cloud that's hanging over the season, and any sign of weakness, any sign of frustration, any sign of discomfort between the team, it's going to immediately go to that. And that's entirely Russ's fault. Pete has said all the right things. Pete has kind of actually scolded some of the media, said like, why are you guys still talking about this? There was an article that someone posted on hawkscast.net that Russell Wilson is still apparently on the trade block. There's a clickbait article out there stating like, yeah, Russell Wilson's still available to be gotten. Just got to make the right trade to the Seahawks. That is a cloud that's going to hang over the 2021 season. The first sign of something going bad, it's going to go immediately to that. And, you know, that's the bed that Russell Wilson made. By not protecting the team, by doing all the things that Pete wants us to avoid as a team, Russell made that an option. So it is a reality. It didn't show up in Game 1. It could show up again sometime in the season for sure, though.
Yeah, last thought on that is that it's one more reason I was upset that Russ took that thing out, because now, like you said, that's going to be the cloud over the whole season. You can put that, you think you put that baby to bed, but it's not. It's there the whole season, no matter what happens, right?
Yeah, anyway. And I don't think you can avoid that. I think there's no way that the team, the media, anyone can look at what happened into the offseason, into the preseason, especially since we didn't see what this team would look like, and say like, hey, this is that cloud that's hanging over everyone's head. When are we going to talk about it? For now, we're not, because they had a really great win, but we'll see. It's definitely looming for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds like if we lose in the first round of the playoffs again like we did last year, I might throw the offensive line under the bus.
Zeb just drives down to the VMAC and just holds out a sign.
Screw you guys. But that's not going to happen this year because we're a better team this season.
Yeah. I mean, this team got a real preseason and training camp, and we got a lot of people there, and it was the healthiest they've been. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but the Seahawks opened the 2021 season and blow out expectations out of the water with a dominating win against the Colts. Pete needed to reset himself after saying the words Russ and Cook, but it was hard to ignore how balanced and effective the entire team looked this past Sunday. Now the Seahawks turn their eyes to another AFC South team, the Tennessee Titans, who got thoroughly stomped by our rival, the Arizona Cardinals. Can the Seahawks open Lumen Field with another resounding win? This is a Hawkscast podcast. And, you know, we're going to just go jump into topic number one. Zeb, I want to know who gets your game ball from the opener?
I'm going to have to give my game ball to first-year offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. I don't think that any of us knew what we were going to see out of that offense on Sunday, and not only did they come out playing very consistently and doing the fundamentals well, they did some new things. We saw some wrinkles. We saw a lot of tight end work and a good balance running and passing offense. And for it being the first game for him as our offense coordinator, and the first game with him and Russ and all the team together like that, super kudos. I was thoroughly impressed.
what is it about Shane Waldron? Because he was kind of a question mark. Ross actually wrote about this on hawkscast.net. What is it about you that, like, if you could say, like, hey, this one play is why Shane got the game ball, is there a play that you would highlight on the offense?
I nothing specific or particular comes to mind. We saw some things I don't think we've seen before, some interesting motions and some fakes and stuff like that. But I think overall it was just consistent, effective play calling and playing to the strengths of our players, putting people in the position to succeed. And we've had a lot of ups and downs over the years with offensive coordinators, and I'm sure we'll have more. But it was really good first game.
Fair enough. Russ, what about you? Who gets your game ball for game number 1?
Before I give my answer, I'm going to elaborate on Zeb's, because Zeb's is a great answer. You asked him, like, if there was one play call, and there is one to me, and the why I would agree with Zeb. If I was going to go with Zeb's direction, it's Lockett's Lockett's first touchdown. Like, this is what we didn't do last year. They played Tampa 2, and Lockett took a route exactly that attacks that. And there was also some underneath stuff to take away things from it. So basically, he ran not just the route that you should use classically to attack that defense, but also disguised it and also drew off some coverage, so it would still be, even if they knew we were going to attack that, they couldn't bounce the route, because they couldn't jump the route, because we had players playing sort of a modern offense. There were people running in the flat that otherwise would have bailed and gone deep to cover that. So, and also, it's not necessarily what Shane called a lot of with the Rams. So there was a lot that demonstrated his capability there. Like, you attack the defense this way. Last year, when some teams went to Tampa 2, we were just like, oh, well, I guess we just keep doing the same dumb thing. And it didn't work out, obviously. So that plus the fact, like I said, he's running in a sophisticated way to take some coverage off. And also the fact, like, we're playing to Russ's strengths. Like, that's not necessarily Shane's biggest favorite play call style. He's all about his rhythm. And also that's part of it, though. I do like the fact that his rhythm was about patterns in the game, not necessarily like his balance is about rhythm, and I like that, not just necessarily a straight distribution of things. So anyway, overall, I thought that was really good. If I'm going to give a different name, I'm just going to go with Green, because on defensive side of things, Green's not somebody, you always expected him just to be a role player, right? He's going to have his 4 sacks in a year, going to make it a splash play every 3 or 4 games, one of them. But instead, he was at times dominant. 3-4 plays in a row, he's making only 1 sack that shows up, but he had pressures, he had tackles everywhere. It's just, I don't mind the fact that LJ Collier was a healthy scratch, just because on the opposite side, Green played like a first rounder and we got him for value. So he gets my game ball, probably his first in his career. I want to recognize that guy, because if he shows up that all season, it's going to be a heck of a ride on defense.
Dude, to me, Green totally looks like, he reminds me so much of like Michael Sinclair or like Rufus Porter.
Yeah,
I
one of
love
those guys
Michael Sinclair.
You know what I mean? Like, just consistent and just keeps getting better, and a name people don't necessarily recognize. In fact, the announcers couldn't even say his name right.
Basically, he's going to sneak up and have like a 9-11 sack season and be like, where did those come from?
Yeah.
It's teed up for him to exactly be that, I think. Yeah. How about you, Sam?
I think for me, it's kind of hard because this game was so balanced. Like, there was everything about the game that you would want to see. Like, they ran the ball effectively. They threw the ball like super efficiently. The one mark is maybe the initial offside penalty that Jamal had. I'm really trying to nitpick about a flaw. But because everyone played so well on the offense and defense and special side, I have a hard time thinking about who I give a game ball to. I wrote this on the forum at hawkscast.net, so I'll change it a little bit. But on this website, I said the defense. So I'm going to go with Ken Norton Jr. And the reason why I'm going to give it to Ken Norton Jr. is because this was a surprise. Like, I don't think we expected the defense to be as good and as consistent as it was to open the year. At least I know I didn't. Even though they kind of closed the year off really strong on defense, half of those teams were like 20, 10 to 20 in offensive rank at the end of the year. So none of them were world beaters. This was a team that had one of the best offensive lines. It's a team that helped their quarterbacks, stay upright, that would use the ball and spread it around to their running backs. Like, their running backs touched the ball a ton of times. They had 26 rushing attempts between Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines, and they also had 15 targets. They caught all but 3 balls sent their way. So that's over 40 touches their running backs had, and at no point did their running backs ever take over. The longest that they had was a 15 and 19 yard pass and a 12 and 8 yard run. That's how well and balanced the defense looked. And I have to give credit to Ken Norton. He's someone we often kind of shame and make fun of and question his ability in the defense because he's running Pete's scheme. But I have to say that he did a really great job. We didn't see a lot of turnovers. Carson Wentz played, for the most part, a pretty clean game. He wasn't throwing errant balls here and there like we've seen in the past. He wasn't trying to win the game by, making a hero ball, which, we've, criticized Russell Wilson for doing. But the defense just did enough, and they got constant pressure. So Pete and Ken, they came up with a great plan. So I want to give more credit to Ken Norton Jr. because I feel like we've taken the piss out of him a few times. So for me, Ken Norton Jr., you get game ball number 1.
Man,
coordinator love, huh?
Coordinator love. I mean, it was funny this week, even on their podcast, even Brock Horde kind of took a shot at Ken Norton, sarcastically saying he has such creative play calling. But actually, I guess that was last week, sorry, but before the game. But actually, there was something. I thought in the very first year, the first third down of the game, they blitzed Jamal Adams, as you kind of expected to do, and it put it in the Colts' head, but I don't think they blitzed him again in that kind of situation.
No.
And how much game time or prep time did the Colts waste on that all week, right? I thought that was pretty clever.
Yeah,
the X's
go ahead.
X's and O's aren't really my thing. I think I say that a lot on here. But I've been listening a lot to Sports Illustrated's Matty F. Brown, and him breaking down the defense this week. He was really impressed with a lot of the way the Seahawks schemed on defense and some of the looks that they.
Yeah, I mean,
it was stuff.
There was, the same bases last year, but the details and the play calling, especially, and particular specific usage of specific players was really different. And I thought it was, it's also funny, how we always talk about how football's hard to isolate this player, that player, this player, because it's all so many moving parts and everything affects everything. How much better do our cornerbacks look if there's a pass rush?
Right.
Yeah.
Flowers is suddenly serviceable. Okay. It's not like he made any great plays, but I also didn't constantly feel oh my God, get that guy out of there. I sometimes felt last year.
Right.
There wasn't 6 straight completions just to him.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Just to finalize this point real quick, what I want to point out, because this is a really unique stat and I happen to have it up, the box score, the longest play from scrimmage that the Colts had that entire game was a 24-yard pass. So the Seahawks did an exceptional job of really limiting them, and their third down numbers were also really, really bad. So again, I think that for me, and we'll talk about this more in the second topic, but if we can see that level of consistency, which is what we saw at the end of last year and going into the playoffs, I think that's really promising, and that makes me very excited for next week.
Definitely.
All right. Final thoughts on game balls?
No, but instead of just game balls, I want to talk about birthdays. I heard Pete Carroll has a birthday today, and I heard maybe one other person.
Yes.
Austin Slater, happy birthday.
Seahawk25 on Hawkscast.net. Happy birthday, sir.
Happy birthday, my
65 years young today.
old friend.
Happy birthday.
All right. Topic number 2, Ross. We're gonna slice things in half. But which side of the ball, offense or defense, were you most surprised to see, and is that sustainable? They both had a great game, but who were you most surprised to see?
Probably it's hard. There was high hopes for both sides, and I was optimistic, and you're hopeful, and things like that. So it's hard to say what I was more surprised. Probably the defense. I didn't expect that. Like I just mentioned, I didn't think that you could completely cover up some of the deficiencies of the cornerback position as thoroughly as we did. Not that they didn't have receptions to wide receivers and whatnot, but like you said, deepest play was 24 yards. I mean, the wide receiver did get to the 2 touchdowns, but I mean, it's the modern NFL. They're going to get points. They're going to get yards, right? So can't completely shut it down, but they've got. I mean, it's not like the Colts have a ton of weapons, but overall, though, I was really surprised and in a happy way that the defense. I almost wonder if bringing in a new offensive coordinator of that type, not put pressure on, but maybe sort of inspired Ken Norton and maybe even inspired Pete Carroll to really relook some things. Creativity spawns creativity. And when you see, in the room, Shane drawing up brand new stuff you haven't thought of before, stuff you only saw on film, it maybe kind of inspired Ken a little bit too. And Pete, maybe. Because, like I said, there was some creative... There was no fundamental changes, but there was a lot of creative uses and change in sort of miniature philosophy and how this play or that play gets used. And it looked really cool. It was really good to see. Is it sustainable? I don't know. Now it's on film. Maybe the next week's opponent doesn't get obsessed with planning for the, blitzes by Adams, but then maybe we use them. I don't know. That's the pressure that's on Ken Norton. He has had lack of creativity in the past, and I hope he continues it going forward.
Zeb, what about you? Which side of the ball were you most surprised to see?
Yeah, I agree 100% with Ross. It was the defense that I think was the most. There was the most mystery about what things were going to be like. We brought back essentially the same offense. I mean, the players, at least, we know what these guys are capable of, right? So I think most of us expected the offense to be at least halfway decent. But the defense, it was a huge question mark. Last year was by far the worst defense we've seen under Pete Carroll. And I imagine that he and Ken Norton Jr. spent a lot of the offseason figuring out how to fix that and how to not let that happen again. So kudos to them for I imagine the countless hours of work they put in. Just getting ready for this first game. Now, let's not lose sight of the fact that this is just the first game. We got a lot of football left to play, and like Ross said, it's on film now. So we'll see going forward what other teams are able to do, how they're able to change things up. But I think the important thing is that we look like we're going to be able to change things up. And just like we were talking about with Jamal, are we going to bring him this week? Are we not going to bring him this week? Teams aren't necessarily going to be able to know what to expect there, and I think that's a major advantage.
Isn't that great?
Yeah,
isn't that awesome? Like the more things you make them think about, the more things you make them plan. You're not just planning how to stop Jamal out of his blitzes. Now you're like, but wait, what if he bails? And what if he stays in coverage? What do we do that?
Right.
The more things they have to practice against, the more things they have to plan against, the more things in their mind you feel like, the better off you are.
There was the one huge kind of mix up with him and Bobby where I don't remember exactly what happened, but they screwed up, and the Colts were able to, I think, get a first down out of it. And I think Jamal is prone to those kind of things, although I imagine he's working on it. I'm sure, the coaches are doing everything they can to keep him up to speed. Though he's a missile out there. He's a wrecking ball. He's not necessarily, he's counting on his instincts. So there's going to
I think he's allowed to freelance to a bit, and so that's where he and Bobby need to be on the same wavelength.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. But either way, good to see that kind of that energy and that hatefulness on a defense that really wants to punish you again. So yeah, definitely impressed by that in one.
So I'm going to change it up. I already gave my kudos to the defense with Ken Norton in the previous topic, so I'm going to talk about the offense. And what surprised me about the offense is it was the type of game that Pete Carroll preaches over and over and over. Completions and rushing attempts. I don't think they hit the mark. It's the number he has in his head, which is completion, first downs, converted, and rushing attempts. Like, he has like a magic number. When you have those three, he says that's like a success for winning. And I believe the Seahawks surpassed that. They had over 20-some rushing attempts, and D. Eskridge was the number 2 rusher on the team. He had the most yards. Russell Wilson had the most attempts, but he took basically sacks and knees at the end of the game to kind of just add to the stat sheet to kill clock.
Right.
But the offense, because we didn't really know what to expect, we didn't see Russell Wilson, we didn't see the stars play, we didn't see our starters in the preseason. It was surprised to see the manner in which a player like D. Eskridge and Freddie Swain were moved on these fly sweeps. They had this one play formation where they would run DK and Tyler Lockett almost like a run towards Russell Wilson to get a handoff, and it was kind of like a jet sweep motion, and then they would hand off to the running back. And they did it twice, and they ran it in 2 different ways, but it was out of the same formation. So one of the things that people have talked about online and other places is that part of what Shane Waldron does with this offense is he's going to run the same formation, but out of that formation, he's going to run several different looks. And when it's a fly sweep, there's 4 people that could run that ball. And I think that really added a level that we really haven't seen, because one of the things that I think we felt a little frustrated with previous was run, pass. That was kind of the formula, and it was kind of expected to the point that it's going to be a run up the middle, and if they're not short, it just wasn't there. Birdfinger chiming in on the chat saying, sadly, no Disley end around. Will Disley had a great game. When he just smushed that guy Marshawn Lynch style, that was a great play.
Fantastic.
But I was really surprised to see the offense. And the thing that I want to talk about, and Ross, you actually talked about it, it was the play where Tyler Lockett beat the cover 2, the Tampa 2. And that's part of why the offense surprised me. We saw them beat the cover 2 that everyone has talked about. Why can't Russell Wilson figure out the cover 2? Why can't he throw against this defense? They ran the ball effectively. That brought the linebackers in. They went over the top. Tyler Lockett split the safeties. That 69-yard touchdown pass to end the second quarter was so amazing. I did not expect him to try and throw that ball, but they had the look. They had a great play design. And the question of if it's sustainable is, yeah, because this was an offense that we didn't even target DK Metcalf until the second half. And, while he got a personal, taunting penalty, and I was kind of worried that he was going to be upset because he didn't get a target until the second half, he came out, had a great second half, had a great touchdown snag. And if the Seahawks can play this balanced offense, I think they could be a top 5 offense by the end of the year, because I think they left points on the board because the game was already out of hand by the fourth quarter, and they didn't need to throttle it down. They were willing to just waste clock and run it out and make the Colts burn timeouts, and they were happy to walk away with the 3-score lead, and they let them score a garbage time touchdown. It wasn't a big deal.
Can I nitpick then a little bit with you?
Yes, please do.
Just to be a little okay, so the third quarter, you were just talking about how Metcalf didn't have a catch in the first half.
Yep.
And in the third quarter is the quarter we scored no points and we didn't do a lot, right?
Right.
Fourth quarter, fine. First, and third quarter, coincidentally not. I don't know. Not coincidentally. Wow, English grammar. From grammar. That's the quarter it felt like. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm projecting. Maybe I'm thinking too much. But it looked and felt like, and other people have also mentioned this, that at halftime, maybe they noticed like Metcalf doesn't have a catch, and Metcalf is getting a little bit because he's not like, in the Holmgren era, you had like really unselfish receivers because you knew the ball was going to be spread out. If you're a guy who needed 120 catches a year, you were in the wrong team. And up to now, we've always had that type too. But Metcalf has shown in the past, if he's completely blocked out of the offense, he can get frustrated because he's a guy who also knows that, hey, you know what? I'm me. I'm 6'4" and the fastest dude on the field, and I could also bench press this whole stadium. I could take over this game, and he knows it. So you got to feed him a little bit. And it felt like in the third quarter they were trying to get him the ball a little bit. A couple of incompletions there, a couple of like forced routes. And I think that's a danger they have to stay away from. If they try to do that too much, there was just a little bit of sign of like getting away from what you really, really want to do and start to placate some egos just a little bit. That looked a little dangerous to me the third quarter. Am I overthinking it?
While we were watching the game, in the chat that I watched the game, and we were talking about how DK's not going to be happy. He's not getting the attention. Somebody even said, "Wait for the blow up. It's going to happen." And that's when our military veteran, American hero, and patriot Flying Greg chimed in and said, "They're starting to slide coverage now that they know they need to." That Tyler Lockett's the one that's hurting them. They're starting to slide the coverage over. You just watch. DK's going to start to get open, and it happened.
Yeah.
So maybe on a couple coverages, but I didn't see them. I saw like almost the entire game until the very, very end. Even on this touchdown catch, if it looked like the Colts were still sliding coverage there because like Tyler is dangerous, but he's a human being. So you've got your human being trying to cover their human being. And hopefully you can come out ahead. But when it's DK Metcalf, you're just like, you're not going to, like, if you slide coverage the other way or play it even, you've got your human being against Superman, and I know who wins that battle.
You may feel okay disagreeing with military veteran and American hero Flying Greg, but I don't.
Well, maybe we'll pull up some screenshots, and probably the All-22 is coming back to Game Pass soon, so I'll be able to do some screenshots, and we'll see who's rolling coverage where. And, not to be unpatriotic, but I'm not sure they ever really went away from covering Metcalf. Sorry.
I think it's a fair concern. I think it's hard to know definitively because he got targeted, he got catches, he got a touchdown. So I think it's hard to say definitively there was something that was going to go wrong. I think it's fair to say, like, hey, if that game had ended differently and he had 0 targets and he didn't have any catches or any touchdowns, then yeah, I think that's a fair question to have. Because it's a little bit more of a hypothetical, we can definitely entertain it because I think it is something that you would be concerned about because he is a star. He has a chance to just be huge in this league, not just physically, but just like what he represents to the team. But but when you're seeing success go with it going to Gerald Everett getting a nice touchdown where he basically cuts from the right side of the field all the way over and slants in because there's coverage. Will Dissly getting action. They had 2 great tight end screens. One got called back, but that was a 20-yard gain. Like, those were creative uses of the offense. And there was definitely a moment where I said, I thought DK could have gotten that look, and he looks a little dejected at the line, walking up to the line of scrimmage. Are we worried? Like, I did worry about that in the game, but at the end of it, Russ only throws the ball 23 times in that game, and he ended up targeting 8 different players on the team. So there's not a lot of looks to go around if they're going to be that efficient, and if they're going to score on a 69-yard bomb to Tyler Lockett, there's not always going to be a lot to go around. So we'll see. We'll see how it progresses, but it's kind of a nice problem to have until it goes wrong. I think that's the way I'll look at it.
That's fair.
Fair enough.
Okay. Let's move on. We have a fun topic, and it's topic number 3. This is a Hawkscast Corner, so credit to a lot of people on the Hawkscast.net for bringing this question up. But first-round pick LJ Collier was a healthy scratch. Every member of the team was healthy, and obviously you can't field everyone for a game. But Zed, are the Seahawks draft failures starting to rise with Collier, healthy scratch, Penny being injured, Trey Brown starting the year on IR, D. Eskridge getting concussed, Ethan Pocic getting IR? Like, are these going to hurt the Seahawks?
Well, first off, I just want to say to the contrary, I don't find this topic to be fun at all. I hate this topic. I don't know what's going on with Collier. First of all, he obviously has not lived up to his status, his draft status. He made some improvements last year, it seemed like. I don't know what's going on right now. I don't know. I haven't heard anything. Being a healthy scratch, and then seeing the way that defensive line played, the way that rotation played without him, kind of makes me go, well, if he's the odd man out, then I'm fine with it. You know, Lawrence in Dallas just got hurt recently, and maybe we could offer Collier up on some kind of a trade. But yeah, the hoping for a Seattle high draft pick to develop into something good is it's a tough game around here, right? Like, obviously DK Metcalf is a super success story, but a lot of our other high draft picks just seem to not pan out. It looks like Malik is having a bit of a second wind to his career. I think he's in Minnesota now.
That one hurts. Cleveland. He's with Cleveland.
Okay. I'm not ready to give up on. Obviously Trey Brown and D. Eskridge. I think those guys far too early, and especially seeing the way D played when he's on the field.
Those fly sleeps, those were great.
Yeah,
like, the gear, his gear to like once he gets in the open field, that's going to be electric.
Absolutely, and that guy just looks like he can play. Like in the limited action we've seen him in, he looks every bit the part of a star wide receiver. So. Obviously, we need to be patient on them. Rashad Penny, just about over it. I think we have better centers on this team than Pocic. I can't imagine. You know, he's good depth, I suppose, but now that he's hurt, who knows? Yeah, and then I don't even like to see that name of Fetty on the show sheet right there.
I took a Fetty off of the board online, but yes, he is on there. But he's a little bit. He's like 6 years removed. We don't have to talk about him.
I mean, he's still in the league. He's still playing. So, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know. A lot of people say Schneider tries to get too cute. They're always trying to find the guy nobody expects, that kind of thing. But yeah, it sucks. It's frustrating. But all that aside, things are okay. You know, maybe this is the way to go. Trade all our draft picks away, and build the team that way. It seems to be doing all right at this point.
Yeah. Ross, what about you? Do you think that the fact that not all of our draft picks are solid hits, is it going to start hurting the Seahawks here?
I mean, we're 10 years in, man. If it was going to hurt, I mean, it does hurt. It hurts every day right now. Because as good as we played Sunday, what if Collier wasn't Collier, he was Max Crosby and is out there with 2 more sacks. What if Penny was instead whatever guy got picked right after him?
Nick Chubb.
Yeah. So it does hurt. You don't want to, but I'm Austin's going to call me a Pete or John Schneider apologist, and I'm going to say I understand. I think they take the same approach in the 5th round as they do in the 1st round, and in the 5th round it works out for you, and in the 1st round it doesn't. And it's partly I wrote this. I think I wrote this today or last night or something on our website. But if you're, once you've established yourself and you're successful year after year after year, your 1st rounder is the 26th pick, the 28th pick, the 24th pick, and we say first rounder, like they're all created equal. But after you get out of the top 3, it's not the same. After you get out of the top 5, it's not the same. After the top, John Schneider says almost every year he's got 12 to 16, maybe 18 guys that have a 1st round grade. So when you're picking 26th, you're going to pick the number 7 best
guy at certain positions. Well, if you're picking the number 7 best guy at a certain position every year for 10 years, after 10 years if evaluations are correct and all things are equal, then you're now no longer an elite team. The only way to stay elite is you got to find the people that other people don't see, because you're drafting the 4th or 5th wide receiver, the 6th guy. So, and if you're following the same exact formulas, again, same thing. If you're all running the same kind of defense, they're all running the same kind of offense, and that's why I didn't mind their offense being sort of antiquated in the past, because you're picking guys that nobody else wants. So the other day, I'm a little bit more forgiving, and also I think that people are really realistic. Austin and I fought particularly about Ifedi. Is Ifedi a bust? I mean, yeah, because he was barely serviceable and he was a first-round pick, but he was like number 26th overall, and he's going to end up looking like having a 12-year career, and that's what you want, a 12-year guy who can play. Yeah, it would have been awesome if he was a star. It would have been awesome if he was somebody good enough you get a second contract. But in modern NFL, unless you're a true star, you don't often get a second contract with the original team anyway, because nobody wants to pay you that. You're more valuable for somebody else's hopes and dreams than the reality on your current team. So it doesn't mean I think Ifedi's amazing. And yeah, it would have been cool to get one of those guys. But how often does the 26th pick hit? It's not. I mean, it's a first round pick still, but it's a first round, but not how we think of it. It's a dartboard at that point, and yeah, they're trying to be cute because they're trying to moneyball the position a little bit, the pick a little bit. But I kind of understand why they're doing it, because you're just doing the same thing, but you're picking last. You're not going to be as good. Does that make any sense?
It makes sense, but I think again, it's as you mentioned, it's all about perspective. What is your perspective going into expectations for any draft pick? Like if it's like I have no expectations for a 7th round pick versus I have all the expectations for a 1st round pick, those are going to carry weight. And like you said, it is hard to look at things in a vacuum. Almost always people are saying well, this guy was available at 46 and you drafted this one at 50 at 25. What were you thinking? It's like, it's not as simple as that, because you're competing with 31 other teams for players. That is a very, very difficult proposition to be. Could you imagine going to lunch and there's 32 sandwiches out there, but 26 of them are terrible sandwiches, and you have to pick 15th and hope that you get a good sandwich? That's going to put a lot of pressure, and some people are going to make mistakes. It's not okay that mistakes are made, but it's human nature. To the larger point, are these failures starting to rise? Like you said, 10 years in, it's hard to say if the Seahawks could have been that much better. Yeah, maybe a player here or there if they really hit on, but they have enough players, they have enough homegrown talent that it's hard to ignore what John and Pete have built. I don't think that makes me an apologist, because I still expect the Seahawks to win and to do well in the playoffs and to compete for a Super Bowl, and you always want more. But at the same time, they are competing against 31 other teams, maybe 26 other teams realistically that want to win, and 5 others that are just kind of happy to be there. But I want to point out a really great comment, and we've talked about this, and we've said this on the podcast before. Kiwi Hawk says, "It doesn't matter how a player was acquired. Pete will start players who best help this team win." And I think that is the embodiment of always compete. You're on the roster. It doesn't matter how we got you. It doesn't matter what it costs to get you. You now have a legitimate chance to show what you can do. Damian Lewis, 3rd round pick, starter. There are examples. DK Metcalf, last pick in the 2nd round, star wide receiver right now. So there are examples of that happening.
Wait a second. If Penny was a 5th round pick, is Penny on the team right now?
Yes, Rashad Penny is. He got IR'd. Wait,
if he was originally a 5th round pick and he had this history up to now, would he have made the cut this year, or is he sort of making the cut off of his pedigree?
I think that's a tougher question to answer without knowing the
intricacies.
But yeah,
I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but I think
it's cool to revolutionize things, and like, you know, when he was new, bringing what was the guy,
Lendell White, who just
Lendell
right
White.
away, yeah.
And there's just like cut him, and like, you know, who's your mama is cut, and you know,
Power moves.
Yeah, and that's cool, and like, and it's really great, and it sets the tone for what this is going to be, and we revolutionize the NFL in some ways. But I think 10 years down the line, first of all, there's a slightly different mentality. I don't think it's purely competition as much as it once before, but I also don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I think you also start to realize, like, there's more to things that maybe meet the eye at first, you know? And there's a reason you have to sometimes be a bit conservative with things and give certain people certain chances and whatnot, because there's other, you know, intangible effects and things like that. And by the way, while we're talking about like sort of chaos theory and how things can connect, you don't realize if, for example, if Eddie had worked out, then you sort of feel compelled to give him a second contract, and all of a sudden he's making $9 or $12 million a year. That means right now we might have a better right tackle, but that also means there's $12 million of salary of players you wouldn't have as well. So it's not always necessarily like the end of the world. It's like there's money still going to get used somewhere in a salary cap world. So again, if some of these people had earned their second pick, great, that's bragging rights. But it just means there's somebody else you're not picking up.
Right.
You know, we wouldn't have Jamal. We probably wouldn't have Jamal Adams.
A good example of that, Ross, a real life example, is Shaquille Griffin. Shaquille Griffin was an okay player. Like, I don't think he was the best corner, but he was a good corner. And
fine, yeah.
I don't think he was worth what Jacksonville offered him. So good for him. Kudos to getting a good contract to play in your home state. But your team just got rocked by the Houston Texans, and
Jokes on
we
them.
were supposed to be the worst team.
yeah.
So what? I couldn't hear that.
Zeb said jokes on them, so
Yeah.
but we do have to move along. We're running a little bit behind, so we are going to jump ahead to topic number 4, the Tennessee Titans. A quick thank you to Santa Clara Hawk, Dome Hawk, Seahawks 25, and Chris 98251 for commenting on Hawkscast. A lot of people have a lot of questions about the Titans. We are going to go with just this big one, but we'll probably wrap in a few of the things. Ross, is there a psychological benefit to facing a team after a win or a loss? And in this case, the Titans got destroyed by the Cardinals.
I'm going to pull my lame answer as usual. I'm going to say it just depends. It depends on the team. It's not a black or white. I feel like the Tennessee Titans, they're a tough team with a hard running team, solid defensive coordinators and things like that. I just feel like they are a team that will respond. I don't think last week was representative of their team. I don't think there's going to be like a top 5 defense or anything, but their defense is slightly better than that. And their offense has talent and has skills. And I think they had, they were a little bit off kilter with some COVID issues. And who knows, sometimes you just have one of those games. I don't think that we should expect a rollover, I also worry, if we end up playing them and beating them 24-17 and going, well, the Rams killed them, so the Rams are better. No, every week is different. We shouldn't expect what happened last week to be this week. They're a good team. They're not the best team, but they've got Derrick Henry. They got Julio Jones now. They've got excellent talent on both sides of the ball. Again, I don't think their defense is particularly amazing. But Tannehill just was like, hey, if I go to somewhere else, I can be elite suddenly. He just decided to be elite one day, right?
Yeah.
It was weird. That doesn't happen a lot, but
it's what happens when you don't play for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, especially what was his name? What was the offensive coordinator? Yeah,
dude, he's Dan Marino.
Yeah, like Dan Marino took that job for an hour and a half, right?
Tan Marino.
Tan Marino.
But no, I don't think I'm particularly more afraid because they got stomped and they might want their revenge or whatever. Or they're playing for pride now. But I also don't think I'm overconfident. Last year you could probably destroy them. I think they've all whoever's on that team has been playing football for a lot of years, and I think they've all been in losses like that probably, and they know how to put it behind them. And I think they've just cleaned the slate. Got to have a short memory sometimes in the NFL, and I don't expect it to be a positive or a negative. It's a super boring answer. I'm sorry.
All right. Ross going with the clinical answer, just totally objective and keel. Zeb, what about you? Is there a psychological benefit to facing a team like the Titans who are coming off of a big loss?
Here's what I think. I think that if the Titans are a good team, then it's going to be harder that they're coming off of a loss because they're not going to want to lose 2 in a row. If the Titans aren't a very good team, then we're going to give them their second loss in a row, and they're going to be upset about it, but there's nothing they can do with that. I don't know. That's all I got as far as whether that's better or not. I don't know a lot about the Tennessee Titans. Obviously,
I think your answer is exactly right. I mean, I think this week is sort of a gut check for them. Is last week going to be your pace setter? Is that what you are? And that means you're a bad team that's going to fold. Or are you going to reach down, find some pride, and say, you know what, we're going to fight back. We embarrass ourselves. Let's be awesome. And let's not be that. Even if we lose, can we fight more?
Right.
I think it's a good answer, man.
And it goes the same way for us as well. Like, we're going to see now going into week 2 maybe how good the Colts are or aren't. Right? It's possible we just beat up on a pretty crappy team. But we'll see, right? Like Tennessee has a lot of real scary weapons on offense. They have good receivers. Bringing in Julio Jones obviously is an upgrade for anybody, just about. And like you said, Tannehill has kind of magically gotten really good over the last few seasons. So it's an NFL team. It's a playoff team from last year. So chances are it's going to be a tough game. And they're probably not happy about losing the way they did last weekend. So I expect them to come out and give us everything they got.
So I think, Zeb, that your point of saying, like, if they're a good team, if they're a bad team, I think that's probably the best way to look at it. The thing about the Seahawks and Pete Carroll is they are probably one of the most best and well-trained mental teams to deal with in the league. It's why they're always in so many games. It's why they're always competitive. It's why they don't get blown out very often. And their ability to block out the noise and say, like, oh, this team came off a big win, or this team's just came off a big loss, we have to approach it in this way. They are almost tunnel vision focused on what they need to do. So I think from a psychological standpoint, it really doesn't impact the Seahawks at all. I think it will impact the Titans more, and my hope is that they're going to be more tense and a little bit tighter because they are feeling pressured to do better. That offensive line is going to feel more pressure to not let Tannehill get sacked 5 times by one person. We don't have a Chandler Jones on our team, but we've got a Carlos Dunlap. We've got, a Rasheem Green. We've got Alton Robinson, who's playing well. We've got, Brian Monet, who blew up the center a couple times against a really solid Titans team, or Colts team. So I don't think that there is going to be much of an impact because the Seahawks are just so well coached and trained. A couple questions that people were asking on the forum was, did the Titans' defense really suck, or was it just Kyler Murray taking over? I watched the highlights of the Kyler Murray game, and I thought he played a great game, but I also think that the Titans' defense is not good. Like, if you look at where they were last year, they gave up more points and more yards than the Seahawks. They gave up 10 more passing touchdowns than the Seahawks did, and that was historically one of the Seahawks' worst defenses. They gave up 36 passing touchdowns last year. Seattle gave up 23, and that's really bad. So Seattle was the second worst passing yardage defense, where they gave up 4,500 passing yards. Tennessee was just about 121 yards less, but they gave up 13 more touchdowns in that span. So Seahawks gave up a ton of yards, but they didn't give up touchdowns in the air. I do think this Titans defense is going to be a little bit susceptible, and I hope that the Seahawks can build off what they did. And I think they're going to be hyped because it's a home game. And Seattle, hopefully they capture a lot of that, hometown magic in this opener.
It's, talking about the defense, it's weird. They brought in Bud Dupree, And I think they thought that was gonna. It's just one guy, but you just think, he's pretty impressive. He was impressive with the Steelers, and I think they thought that was going to have a sort of roll-on effect and elevate everybody else. But I don't know what happened last game. You didn't see him. He had one tackle, and that wasn't, And
maybe he was sad.
he was. I mean, yeah, I guess. It was a little weird to see that, but it's also. I mean, I've talked about this before in my own personal philosophy. I think players should be more careful switching teams, because sometimes your success had more to do with scheme or the players around you than you could have. It doesn't mean you're not a good player. It just means that football's a team game and it's all interlocking parts and it's hard to isolate. It's not baseball, like I always say. It's not a series of one-on-one competitions usually. You don't know what that guy next to you is doing in small details that's affecting how the whole overall game is affecting you, so things come to you. He was brought over to be a centerpiece, and maybe he's not ready to be the centerpiece. Maybe he was more a role player, just looked like he was a centerpiece because there wasn't a lot of attention on him because he was well surrounded by more talent. I don't know. It's a mess. They looked a mess, but that's the first game, and they didn't play everybody they could have in the in the preseason as well. So maybe they just need a game or two to I'm hoping they don't get it right, but I was surprised at how bad they were, to be honest.
We're running a little late, but I think it's important for us to cover this topic in addition to just the Titans in general. Are you concerned about facing a guy like Derrick Henry? As quickly as we can to allow us to progress on the podcast, Zeb, is he a person you're concerned about?
I mean, yeah, he's a monster, but I also think that we're probably better suited against a kind of a bigger guy that than a quicker, more elusive back. So I feel like we have the dogs to stop him.
Ross, what about you? Are you concerned about Derrick Henry?
A little bit. I mean, his running style is not necessarily what we're built to stop. I mean, I think Jonathan Taylor's type of running style was almost tailor-made for us. But
exactly the opposite of what I said. So
we'll see who's right after the game in the predictions as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
We played the Titans 4 times as the Titans.
Only 4 times? 4
times. We played the Oilers or that franchise 17 times. We're 10-7 against them, but only 4 times since the turn of the century.
That's crazy.
Didn't Chris Johnson as a Titan make his 2,000-yard season against us?
Oof. Was that a Holmgren or a Mora year?
Oh, it's got to be Holmgren.
I think it
was like last game of the season.
Ugh.
Yeah, that's 2005.
That reminds me of the time that Emmitt Smith broke Barry Sanders' all-time rushing against us as well.
Yeah,
that's just funny. A lot of records being broken against us.
just bad timing, right? No,
I mean, we play Chris Johnson week 16. That's what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But still, wasn't awesome. Like, just kind of hoping like we magically somehow shut him down, but no. He actually ended up with a pretty big game, as I recall. But oh well.
Yeah. My thoughts about Derrick Henry is he is a great running back, but my personal philosophy with any team where they're run focused is they are not necessarily the best passing team. So what that means is if they're not controlling the game and they're not controlling the clock, having a great running back and being able to utilize them almost goes out the window. It's the same reason why I don't think a running back will ever win an MVP award anymore, is because they can be nullified by being down 2 to 3 scores. If you're down 21 to 7 at any point in the game, your running back as a pure runner goes completely out the window. So a guy like Christian McCaffrey, he can catch a ball out of the backfield, but at some point you probably would rather have a pure receiver out on the field, so you don't line him up as a running back, you put him out on the line of scrimmage and he runs a regular route. What happened in that game was that the game got out of hand and the Titans didn't really have a chance to run the ball. Derrick Henry only ran for 3.5 yards a carry, which is well below his previous average. So if Seattle's offense can take advantage of a bad Tennessee secondary and a bad Tennessee defense, I don't think Derrick Henry will be a factor. Now, if the game is close, then yes, that is a huge concern. But that is the way that I see the Seahawks winning this game. Score early, score often, and then Derrick Henry doesn't have a chance to be a factor.
I mean, I was thinking the opposite of you. I mean, I think a running back gives you a chance to control the game. Like, yes, later on,
if you have a good defense and a strong running game, I 100% agree with you, but they don't have a good defense.
Well, we'll see. I mean, like, we're talking about bad draft picks. They gambled a little bit and they took Farley in the first round. He's supposed to be like a nickelback, and he didn't. Like, when you pick a cornerback in the first round, you're kind of thinking that guy's going to come in and lock down stuff immediately, but he didn't start last week. He didn't play last week, so their number one pick as well is not a bust, of course. He's brand new, but I think Vrabel, their coach, was a little bit like, sorry guys, it's a work in progress. So that's part of, your big free agent acquisition doesn't seem like it's going to work out so far, and then your big draft pick doesn't work out. It's a little. I mean, I guess you're starting to figure out the mystery of why your defense didn't improve this year, right?
Yeah.
But Derrick Henry, we'll see. I think if we don't stop him first quarter, then we're in for a long day.
I think that's definitely a possibility. But I just look at that defense and I just don't see anything on that side that, like, I feel the Seahawks should be overly worried about. Not saying you ignore them and they're just like a cupcake, but I think the Seahawks can do.
A good guy. Bud Dupree's, his stats. I mean, he's a 10 to 12 sack a year guy, right? But like last week, he had one tackle. I'm like, change of scenery did not help you at least week one, man.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are going to wrap up. We're going to jump ahead to some predictions. But final thoughts on the Titans, real quick.
I don't like the name Titans as a team. Like,
yeah, long.
Like, do you know what happened to the Titans? Like, they were destroyed, right?
They're locked in the core of the earth.
Like, the word sounds cool, maybe, and it's been too long since we don't know. But like, when you name your ship Titanic or when you name your team the Titans, you want to check the mythology there first, man.
You want to remember them first of all.
Good call out. Yeah. Good call out. All right, let's move on to some predictions.
Long live the Oilers.
Long live the Oilers, for real. I love
Dan
those
forever.
So before we go into our predictions, Ross, I'm going to hit you up first. But these were our predictions for the score last week. So Ross predicted a 19-17 win. Zeb predicted a 38-22 win. I predicted a 24-17 win. So
you were closest. You were the closest. Sam.
I was the closest. We'll see how our predictions cover.
You were the closest. You were the closest, but I gotta say, Zeb's prediction most closely represents the feel of the game.
I would definitely agree with that.
I gave them too many points. I gave them too many.
Yeah, but yours represents a sort of I mean, that 22 maybe is like a garbage time touchdown, so it's 38-15 going in. Yeah, yours feels like what the game felt like. Yeah. Sammy's is just a little closer.
It's kind of amazing the difference. I was 5 points off, and the difference between 24-16 versus 28-16 versus 24-17 in football is like a totally different game. So
yeah,
that is true.
Totally feel.
So we're gonna kick it off. Final score: Seahawks and the Titans. Russ.
You always make me go first. 35-20.
Okay. I can dig it. Zeb?
We've never...
Wait, Birdfinger, write that down.
Birdfinger, is he listening?
No idea. Whoever's listening, write that down. Somebody take a note.
Well, we've never scored 30 points against this organization, so I'm with you, Ross. We're going to do it this time. 31-14.
Okay.
Do you have some almanac out or something on your desk?
Yeah, it's an almanac it's a book. I'm on the
what was the score you said, Zeb? Sorry, what did Zeb say again?
31-14.
Okay.
Yeah, I see the Seahawks scoring in the 20s, and I don't see the Titans getting outside of 15. So I'm gonna go 28-15. I think it's a big score. Seahawks win well, and the game's kind of out of hand. Ross, I don't know if you're a gambling man, but the Seahawks are now a 5.5 point favorite. They started as a 3, and it's climbed significantly. Do the Seahawks cover 5.5 points?
Am I a gambling man? Every time I get in the car. Yeah, they're going to cover.
Yeah, no sweat.
Yeah, we all predicted, double-digit point wins. I think this is... If we're seeing just the Seahawks playing their game, I think they cover easily. Ross, who's going to have the most snaps at running back behind Chris Carson? Is it going to be Collins, Dallas, or Homer?
DJ Dallas.
Yep,
Yeah,
DJ Dallas.
Yeah, Alex Collins was a surprise scratch in that last game, so it sounds like DJ has the third spot behind Penny, so I think they're going to give him the rock. I thought Collins looked a little bit better in the preseason, but yeah, it looks like Dallas is the guy. Ross, who's going to get the third most receptions after DK and Lockett? Is it going to be Gerald Everett, Will Dissly, D. Eskridge, Freddie Swain, Chris Carson, or are you taking the field?
Eskridge didn't practice today, man.
He did. He's in concussion protocol today.
Yeah.
What's his name? Josh, what's his name? Everybody keeps saying what they want back.
Josh Gordon?
Yeah, no. No, I'm going to go with my man Disley again.
Okay.
That had it last week.
I'll take Everett.
You guys can't think tight ends. You guys are... I'm going to go with Chris Carson. I think Chris Carson is just building on his dynamic. He got a couple nice catches, couple first downs, and I think he's going to be the third on the team with the third most receptions. Ross, over under 2.5 sacks for one Mr. Russell Wilson.
Over. We'll have the same conversation next week.
Well, I'll take the under then. How about that?
Yeah, I'm fighting words.
I'm going to take the under as well. I think that this defense, they're not going to be very good, so I don't think they're going to get the pressures if the line can play as well as they did last week. Russ might run into a couple sacks because, he's trying to do his thing, but I'm going to go with under and say Ross contains it. Ross, over under 3.5 sacks from one Mr. Ryan Tannehill. Long dramatic pause.
Over.
Okay.
Yep. I'm going over as well.
I'm going to go over, but who's going to get those sacks?
Everybody.
Everybody? One for everyone?
I think Adams actually gets the one this week.
Ooh, that'll fire up the crowd.
I think Green is going to get 1.5, and we're just going to be like, oh my God, is he now elite? And then the next 2 weeks he's going to get nothing.
Just go dark. I'm going to say who I want to get a sack. I want Bobby to get a sack, just because I think Bobby started out, had a really good game. Over under 125 rushing yards for one Mr. Derrick Henry.
Under.
Yep, I'm going under.
I think the Seahawks are going to blow him out, so he's not going to be able to run the ball. Just a heads up, someone looked this up on radio, I believe, and they tried to figure out the last time Derrick Henry did not eclipse back-to-back games with 100 yards, and it was all the way back in the mid part of 2019, so it has been a while for that. Over under 85 rushing yards for one Chris Carson, though.
Under.
Ooh.
It's going to be close. I'll take the over then, though.
Yeah, I think he had 91 on the ground last game. I almost feel like they have him on a pitch count, but they also were playing well, so I think that gave them a chance to kind of give some more snaps to other people. But I'm going to go over. I think he's going to have another big run, and I think he's going to get some end zone touches as well, and help the team celebrate. So I'm going to go over.
There were only 3 carries by running backs besides Chris Carson last week, and I think this week they're going to want to balance that out a little bit more. I think like Chris Carson maybe peaks out at 12 or 14 carries with a few more going to Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, if DJ can play that role and attack the line, you know, one of the things that Chris Carson is so good at is churning his legs and kind of falling forward for yardage, which is kind of like a problem a lot of running backs don't seem to value, but maybe they just take the hits because of it. But Chris Carson always falling forward for like an extra yard all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. And gentlemen, those are our predictions for the day. We have so much to look forward to. This is the home opener at Lumen Field this coming Sunday. I think it'll be a lot of fun. But until then, time for some shout-outs.
Shout out to the Mariners for at least keeping it interesting into September this year.
Boo!
Oh, dude, you said that if they were still in it in August, you would care. That's what you've always told me. They're in it.
They were 1 game back, and they lost 3 out of 4.
They were 2 games. Well, when? I mean, this last series they were 2 games back, but still, like, this is a year ahead of when they were supposed to be competitive, dude. Like, man, like, so harsh.
It's 20 years. Like, how long do you expect me to root for them?
I don't expect you to root for them.
I gave up them in 2003. I have no expectations for that team. So I apologize for raining on your shout out. I apologize. I should check myself.
Dude, they're trying.
It's not enough. It's not enough.
Not enough.
Shout out to my Uncle Vito.
You have an Uncle Vito.
God damn right I do.
That is awesome.
Zeb should have like 5 Uncle Vitos.
Like, if you put Tony's family together with Zeb's family, you got a whole like Sopranos episode.
It's true. And my cousins Federico and Andrea.
Wow. Awesome.
I want to give a shout out to all the people at Hawkscast.net that have chimed in not only on the forum but on the podcast topic. We are so appreciative of everyone. To Chris98251, Dome Hawk, Seahawks21, Santa Clara Hawk. We hope that you guys check this out and gals check this out. We are the Hawkscast.net podcast. Check us out at Twitter at Seahawks Podcast or Seahawks Forum. A lot of great topics. Check us out online. We love to engage with you. We want to know what you think. Until then, we wish you all go Hawks. I am Sam, and with me as always is Zeb and Ross. Have a good night, everyone.
Go Hawks.